Want to achieve network marketing success? Then you're in the right company. Hello, and welcome to Leave Nothing to Chance, hosted by networking marketing giant John Solider. Learn everything you need to know about the network marketing space from somebody who's actually done it. Join us every week for front row seats as we feature some of the finest and most successful personalities in network marketing. Leave nothing to chance. Join us now.
Well, this is going to be a privilege, my friends, to interview Scott Eriksson here tonight. Scott is an amazing man. He's had a multitude of careers, both in the athletic world as well as in the IT world. So I'm just going to share some things about Scott. Scott was an engineering student at the University of Michigan when he decided to walk on the track team halfway through his freshman year. He ended up winning 3 Big Ten individual as well as team championships, was elected co-captain his senior year, still holds the school record 40 years later. He started working as an engineer and quickly got into software development. He qualified for 2 Olympic trials in the discus, was the USA runner-up in indoor shot put, and qualified for several USA teams. He was elected co-captain by the other athletes for the indoor meet between the USA, England, and Russia in 1988, and that took place in Birmingham, England. In 1986, he started his own consulting company with clients such as General Motors Transmission, Buick Oldsmobile Cadillac, Teledyne, etc. 1992, he moved to Wyoming and was involved as a lead software developer and eventually became the executive vice president for a startup called Aspen Tree Software. This company used statistics to predict candidate success for companies like Marriott, Macy's, Perrier, 7-Eleven, Motorola, as well as others. This company grew from 3 people to 40 people in several years, and was purchased by Seville Holdworth of London, England. During his stay in Wyoming, he lived in a log cabin at 8,200 feet at the base of the Snowy Range Mountains. Inc., Technology, and Fast Company all did articles on Scott for his unique approach to work and life, such as being a mountain man, software developer. Scott was remote before being remote was even a thing. Scott also wrote an article on database development called Pray Like a Fox and spoke at a number of professional conferences. After Aspen Tree, Scott moved to Dallas in 1999 to give his kids better educational opportunities. In Dallas, Scott started a new software development company where he acquired clients such as the Zig Ziglar Corporation, AOL, Time Warner, Nokia, Chuck E. Cheese, and Harley-Davidson. In the early 2000s, Scott wrote an application called Provident that manages relationships, sales, commissions, and marketing for businesses with a distributed sales model. He still provides services around this application today. Since then, he created an at-work fitness program called NERDbody, ran the Marine Marathon, completed a triathlon, and 9 years ago at age 53, became active in Masters Track and Field, winning roughly 15 national championships since then, and counting. He's on his way to one as we speak here in a couple of weeks. Scott was diagnosed, unfortunately, with aggressive bladder cancer in June 2021, but continued training and competing, winning 4 world championships, 6 U.S. championships, and setting 2 American age group records. He has also spoken at several cancer conferences to doctors and patients about exercising during treatment. Scott has 3 children who are all into fitness. The oldest, Keenan, is a black belt as well as a fitness writer. Jamie, the middle child, is a software developer, plays ultimate frisbee, and the youngest works at a sporting goods store and is a certified gym rat. Scott is married to Olga, and both are in their second marriages. Olga has 4 kids of her own and originally is from the Ukraine. She is a software developer as well and also performs Latin dancing. Scott continues to train at age 62 years, has learned a number of things about fitness for older people and athletes that have allowed him to continue an active life. Throughout his journey, Scott has continued to add and scratch off items on his bucket list. He has participated in a Canadian football camp, created a cartoon with 2 episodes showed on Dallas Public TV, and even has been a professional wrestler for several months in Michigan. Scott does not consider himself an adrenaline junkie at all, but he does enjoy getting outside of his comfort zone and taking on new challenges. In addition to Masters Track and Field, software development, and researching the latest AI, Scott coaches aspiring pros of all ages, teaches foundational skills to technical professionals, promotes fitness at work, and plays the guitar. At times, he will inflict his self-professed lack of musical talent on others by putting a few of his songs like I Like to Throw and Quarantine out on social media. In January 2024, Scott will start a new venture, taking on the publishing responsibility for Masters Track and Field News. This is a busy guy, folks, needless to say. He gets stuff done. I don't know how he does it all. but he's also a good friend of mine. But I watch what he does, and he is after life every single day. So, Scott, welcome to the Leaving Nothing to Chance Network. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great, John. Thank you. You know, and I got to say, as I listened to that, it sure sounded like 25 pounds stuffed into a 5-pound bag, didn't it?
Well, you've done a lot. And one of the many things I admire about you, besides obviously all the things that we just talked about there, is your attitude, because you always have a great attitude about life, despite what it throws at you. And, you know, you had a curveball thrown at you a few years ago here, and you have overcome that, and they're back and fitter and stronger than ever. So let's just start there. Let's talk about that. Everything's going well. Remarried, beautiful wife.
Yeah, life is good. It's funny. Going way back. I remember even in high school, you know, things would happen and you come out, you know, you fall into it, you come out smelling like a rose. And I remember a number of years ago, I was inducted in the University of Michigan's Track and Field Hall of Fame. And the whole premise of my acceptance speech was better lucky than good. You know, I was bored my freshman year. I walked on. I ended up growing 4 inches and 60 pounds in college. Who knew, right? Who knew that was going to happen? But it set my life on a different course. Better lucky than good. Went through some tough times in my first marriage. Got divorced. Was working on my software business on a weekend, and there was a code camp of software developer wannabes in the same facility at the time, and that's where I met my beautiful, very talented, smart wife. And you know, who knew? Better lucky than good. So the same thing kind of applies to, you know, going through the bladder cancer treatment. It was a diagnosed with aggressive bladder cancer. I had some blood in my urine after a hard workout, ignored it, you know, like a little bit like the idiot that I am at times. And a lot of guys are when we see stuff like that. You go to Dr. Google and you read something where it says, oh, if you just had an intense workout. Well, you know, we both always have intense workouts, right? And so this should go away in 72 hours. And if it does, don't worry about it. And so it went away right away. I didn't worry about it, but then it came back. And so eventually got the treatment, all that kind of stuff. And this is where better lucky than good. Got connected with UT Southwest Medical Center. Their urology oncology department's right here in Dallas, right in our backyard, one of the top facilities in the country. And just got some advice about, you know what, continue to stay active, continue to do the things that you like to do. That'll help you get through the treatments. And I did. And I ended up, doing pretty well. And ironically, it's really opened up 2 doors for me. Doing well and they call it masters. I call it old farts. So bear with me if I switch up the title a little bit, but doing pretty well in the old farts track and field and going through the cancer treatment at the same time was interested enough to people where I've been given a platform now to go and speak to people who are going through treatment or just, you know, people who are older or people who live sedentary lives about how to stay active with very little interruption to your main life. And so important for us. So the cancer treatment in a way, right? You don't want to, you don't wish it upon yourself or anybody, but when something like that happens, like I was telling my business partner at the time, it was a chance to maybe live a little bit more heroically, you know, to have that swashbuckler adventure attitude of, okay, you know, this has me, this is the situation, it doesn't have me, I have it, and let's just continue on. You know, a friend of mine, Tom Ziegler, Zig Ziglar's son, told me a while back, he said, all the great stories are comeback stories. All the epic stories are redemption stories. And so I was lucky to have some great support people around me where I never really fell into a depression or even worry. It immediately became, hey, this is going to be an interesting comeback story. And it was. So again, better lucky than good to have those people around, to be blessed with that attitude for whatever reason, and then to have such a great support group going through the treatment.
I think even a few months back, if I remember correctly, you even were invited up to Chicago to talk to some doctors about your training while you had cancer, while you were going through all this ordeal. Well, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I spoke at the AUA Association, 20,000 urologists, which, you know, never thought I'd be in the company of 20,000 urologists at one time. That was never on my bucket list before, but, you know, but there I was in a breakout group of patient perspectives. And it's interesting, you hear some of these stories and really inspiring. And certainly people who have suffered and gone through stuff that's was a lot more trying and challenging than what I went through. I was, again, really lucky. But it was a great opportunity to let the doctor see how easy it is to just have some level of activity and exercise through our daily lives. So I actually took a bunch of the resistance bands with me, which is what our NERDbody microburst workout program is based on, and I handed them out. And so anytime I do a presentation like this, it always cracks me up because I love to see people out there doing some exercises. and we make them fun. Like one's called, Up Chuck Norris, where you're doing some kicks and punches. There's butterflies and bee stings where you're boxing and all that. And I encourage people to talk some trash when they're doing this. And it's so hilarious because you see some of the most reserved looking people. You can tell some of them at time they let it slip and they start swearing a little bit because they're boxing and, they get a little carried away. So it was a lot of fun. And, again, it's just a really lucky thing sometimes if we have the chance to do something where, it creates a ripple, right? So I've had people come back and say, boy, doing this exercise has really helped me a lot. It's funny, a few years ago, I got an email from a lady in Alaska. And this is, again, one of these things that never saw this coming on my text messages before my bucket list. She said, she's a little bit older. She said, my husband and I really love your program. We can exercise in the house, and it's really important for us right now because we have a bear infestation in our neighborhood, and it's not safe to go walk outside. So I thought, that's pretty crazy.
Well, let's talk about that a little more, because I know one of the philosophies you have, especially for older people working out, is you don't have to kill it. You don't have to go and be at the gym for 3 hours. So let's talk about that a little bit, and also how they use the bands and how so many, people with sedentary lifestyles or jobs where they're kind of tied to a desk, what they do. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Right. So a couple things, and I'm not going to go in a straight line here as I'm discussing things. So if I jump over something, feel free to reel me back in. I get all hyped up when I talk about this stuff. So, and I'm gonna give some background first. So when I turned 40, so back in the day, I was pretty athletic, like I said, made some Olympic trials, finally hung up my uniform when I was 31 and thought, okay, I'm going to focus solely on my software business, my engineering business. By the time I'm 36, I'm getting a back operation. When I was 40, my youngest son was born, and I remember stepping on the bathroom scale and seeing it go with some momentum past 300. Now, but 300 is still, that's too much weight for me. As a funny story, one time I was telling this to a group of people, and I actually was describing it this way. I said, I stepped on the bathroom scale and I saw it fly past 300, and I was actually kind of relieved because I had been noticing when I was taking a shower, when I looked down, I'd see less of a certain part of my anatomy. And all these people, they get all shocked. They go, my feet, I'm talking about my feet. My God, people. So, but it was a wake-up call to me because during that whole time leading up to that, I had a gym membership. And I used it 4 or 5 times a week, and I would go to the gym for an hour or so a day. But the thing and I read this quote, it's out of Professor Hamilton out of Houston, Texas, University of Houston, a while back, said, the 1 hour a day you spend in the gym does not immunize you for the other 23 hours of the day. And that's what really resonated with me because, I'd go to the gym, but the rest of the time I'm just sitting down at my desk, I'm eating, I'm going out with clients, I'm not watching my diet. And so I started doing some research, and I tried to have different things. How can I integrate fitness into my work? Because I'll admit it, I'm a workaholic. Even to this day, I spend 10 to 12 hours a day at my computer. I love to work. So I needed to find a way to integrate fitness into my work style. It just so happens that doing that also opened up things that are physiologically better for us, especially as we get older. So now instead of going to that gym for an hour, hour and a half a day, 2 hours a day, I break it up and I do short little exercises, sometimes only 1 to 2 minutes throughout the day. That gets me up, and ironically, it allows me to be better focused while I'm at work, so I become more productive when I'm at work. And when I'm done with work, I have more energy. I don't get to that, we've all had those days where we don't do anything, and by the end of the day, I call it brain dead and body lethargic, because our brain's been doing a lot of stuff all day, but our body's just been laying there, sitting there. No wonder when we get home, it's so hard to drag ourselves to go and do something. So by integrating these things with my, into my work style, and it could be as simple, John, as just a flat resistance band. And there's some really interesting exercises you can do with a resistance band. I have guys come to me all the time. I had a guy come over to the house the other day, and he goes to the gym quite a bit. Within 5 minutes, he's going, man, I got to stop. Because he was doing movements he hasn't done before, right? Which brings me back to one of the theories. By having variety in these exercises that you do, you're using that sort of that muscle confusion, right? You're having to engage your mind and your body, which is ultimately the best thing to do. But so as we get older, we don't have the same recovery that we had when we were 23, 27, 30, even 30, right? We don't, and especially if you're going through something like cancer. So one of the things when I first was diagnosed, I was speaking to a doctor out of a more of a holistic treatment center in Arizona. I didn't go there as a patient, but I was just talking to him, and he was giving me, his advice and his opinion on things. And I asked him about working out. And he said, just don't get into oxygen deprivation, because that's when your immune system gets lower. Cancer cells can grow and thrive in less oxygen, but regular cells cannot. And so I thought, that's really interesting. So I have 2 rules that I use when I do go to the gym, or even when I exercise with my bands. 1, quit while you still feel you should do more, right? I always leave the gym feeling like I should have done more. That keeps me enthusiastic to come back, and I know that I haven't exhausted myself. Because when you exhaust yourself, it's hard to come back the next day, but you're also lowering your immune system kind of over that red line. And then the second is, if I can't speak, if I can't talk while I'm exercising, then I've entered into a state of oxygen deprivation. So I'll go out and do short sprints. That's my running. I won't go do long distance, but I'll go out and do some short sprints, get some aerobic or heart, cardio workout there. But I'll make sure I take enough rest in between my sprints. So by doing these throughout the day, now I do 4 or 5 1 to 2 minute exercises per day. I feel like I'm in physically, other than the cancer, some of the best shape that I've been in 30 years. Range of motion is better, all those kind of things. And, we go out and work out together. And, for an old fart, I feel like I can still move pretty decently. And that's the reason. And we both know this too. As we get older, we don't necessarily lose our strength as much, but if we don't move, we certainly lose our mobility. And that's what's really important for us as we get older as well, so we can avoid the fall, so we can have good balance and all those kind of things. Not to mention, feel better, and feel more fit.
Let's talk about one other aspect of that, and we'll get into some of the IT stuff here in a minute, folks. I want to talk to Scott about also, but he's got such an expertise in this, especially for those of us that are up there in years. If you're over 40, these are all things that are going to keep you going for a long time and have that longevity that you want. So let's talk about something else, Scott. You went over, I want to say it was Norway. Was it Norway or Finland?
Last summer, Finland.
I'm thinking in the winter. Poland. A world championship or 2 world championships here?
2.
2 world championships.
2 events, right? One, the shot put and the discus.
Shot put and the discus at the world level. But then you had an interesting experience because
where you're going with this.
You had a chance to join some of us people, and believe it or not, Scott, some of my listeners think I'm crazy because they know I've become such a big fan of Wim Hof and Nicole myself. But talk about your experience, because I remember you sent me some pictures from there.
Let me just say this. You are crazy, but you aren't necessarily crazy alone, right? You're not the only one who's crazy, I guess. So we went up to the stayed in a town called Gdansk. It's on the Baltic Sea. And this was at the end of March, the very end of March. And you see and it was snowing, and you see the water coming in and all this kind of stuff. And, we stayed right at the Marriott, right there on the beach. And I told my wife, I'm going to go swimming in the ocean tomorrow. She was, not an ocean, it's the sea. I said, okay, I'm going to go swimming in the sea tomorrow. She goes, you can't do that, you're crazy. Well, then as we're in the elevator, I look over and I see a little pad, thing of paper, the notice that, for all the activities. And one says, winter swim. Well, that's, and you and I talked before about the ice stuff and all that, so that's all I need to hear. So I would march over to the front desk, go, tell me about the winter swim. And they go, every morning, 9:30, meet our lifeguard down here, and he'll either take you into the sea or you'll go up onto the pool on the roof. And so I said, okay, I'm doing it. Always wanted to do that stuff, right? Grew up in Michigan. There were times we'd, swim in the hotel in the heated pool and roll in the snow. So I figured this would be just like that. Or here I'll jump, and we're in Dallas, so wintertime the pool doesn't get that cold, but I'll go jump in the pool in the winter outside. So I come down there at 9:30, and, he goes, okay, well, we can't go in the sea because the water's too rough, but we're going to go into the pool on the roof. And so I asked him, so, well, how cold is the water? He said, well, about 2 degrees Celsius, which is like 36, I think, right? 35, 36. And then I go, well, how cold is it in the sea? He goes, same thing, about 2 or 3 Celsius. I said, okay. So first thing, he gives us gives you a robe. He gives you some things for your feet, like little, diver socks almost. And then you go to the hot sauna. And there's 5 of us in this group. And then 2 women, 3 guys, and then the lifeguard. So then we take the elevator up to the roof, and you climb down the ladder into that water. And oh my God, it was literally like somebody dropped 1,000 pounds on my chest. Luckily I remembered what they said, make sure you breathe. And the Wim Hof stuff is all about breathing, right? So I breathe, make sure I was breathing and all that. And so the goal was you would get into the pool for 3 to 5 minutes. Then you'd get out, jump around, get your blood moving again, and then get back in the pool for another 2 minutes or 1 minute, get out, and then go to the sauna. So, first of all, we all get into the pool, and the lifeguard said something to me that just cracked me up. He goes, make sure you move around because you don't want the water to get too warm next to your body. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, God forbid it gets up to 38 degrees Fahrenheit, right? But so you jump around and stuff, and two of the women, they got out of the pool first, and the one woman couldn't really stand up, so she needed some medical assistance. And then we all got out and started jumping around. One of the guys said, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. So now it's just me and the one guy, the sole survivors kind of thing, and we get into the pool, and his teeth start chattering right away, so he gets out and leaves. And so I found myself the last guy in the pool, and I don't know why, but I felt some sense of victory with that in a weird way. My wife was in the parka the whole time. She had the thing closed like this, and it's snowing past, and she's doing some videos and all that kind of stuff. But it was a great feeling, and I don't know how many people, your listeners grew up in the north, where maybe I grew up on a small lake, and we'd go out and play hockey in the wintertime, and then come in and put our feet by the fire, and you get the pins and needles. Remember when the blood's rushing back, and this was interesting because the second time you got in the pool after jumping around, you had the same pins and needles effect, but on the inside of your body. And that was like, whoa, that's new, right? So, but it was great, and I would do it again. I feel like until I actually go into the sea itself, I don't really feel like I'm part of the Polar Bear Club just yet, and I definitely want to be. But I will have to say, it was much nicer to climb into a pool sort of in a controlled, submersion, where I can only imagine trying to walk out into the sea with 5 and 6 foot waves, and they touch you on that sensitive part of your side underneath your arm, and oh yeah, I'd have been screaming so loud. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun, and I know you're an avid cold water guy, and I love it as well. Maybe not quite as crazy as you, but definitely that was a bucket list thing that I would do again.
Well, it is. I mean, we can have a show just about cold water therapy, but yeah, it's something again, folks, and a lot of you I know you've heard me talk about it. You've heard some of our other guests talk about it, and it's just something that it works. I mean, it works. Yeah. Scott and I are partners in something too, that we both have a tremendous amount of inflammation because we beat our bodies up for so long. So, Scott, that leads me to my next question. Let's talk about your wrestling career. So that was something.
I love that it was. So back in the day, right, we were both roughly the same age, and the big time wrestling, Hulkamania, all that kind of stuff was a big deal. And George the Animal Steel, I met him back in Michigan, who was an Iron Sheik. And, George the Animal Steel, ironically, was a math teacher. Persona in the ring was the crazy guy who would wear the leash and chew on the turnbuckle. By day, he was a math teacher and well respected by his students. So, but so I had some friends that I went to college with, the Steiner brothers. They're Rob and Scott Eriksson. They both became very successful in big time wrestling. And I remember when we graduated college, they asked me to, you should go do this with us. And I said, no, I'm going to go. I got a job at McDonnell Douglas. Now it's Boeing, and I'm going to build jets. And I had 33 UAW employees, reporting to me. We put on the ailerons, electronics, and all that. And, I was adding to the great GMP of this fantastic country. And I was working a lot of overtime. I was making $70,000 a year. And that was great money back then, 84, 85. But something always struck me is, but I could make 10 times as much by jumping around in the square ring in my underwear as some other big goofball. It just seemed kind of strange to me, right? But I always saw the humor in it, never really took it too seriously. But it was a bucket list thing. So I moved back to Michigan to train, and once track and field was over, after the first Olympic trials, I said, okay, I'm going to go and try this. And so there was a small group in Michigan that was starting up that would go around and do big-time wrestling matches. Boulder Brazil was part of that group. He was way old by then. And I was by far, not bragging or anything, but I was the athlete that was in the best shape. And so I had all these illusions of grandeur and the names that I wanted. So first I was going to be, and I'd pitch them to these guys. Hey, how about this? I'll be Leif Eriksson, Viking extraordinaire. And back then I had long blonde hair, and I go, and I'll have the Glacier Girls, women in silver bikinis in my corners. Leif Eriksson and the Glacier Girls. I go, be quiet, you idiot. We don't have Glacier Girls. I said, okay, then how about this? Scott Eriksson, the love wrestler. They go, no, they almost threw me out for that. If I wouldn't have been so big, they would have. And then I said, well, how about Myron Brooks? And eventually I'll have a brother, Byron Brooks. Myron and Byron Brooks, the Brooks brothers. And we'll be nerds who get transformed. The little static ball thing at the Science Museum. That'll transform us into wrestlers. I thought that was a great picture. No, we're too nerdy. By the way, all these characters, things like them, became very popular later by other people. And so they said, you're going to be Scott Armstrong, and you're going to wear your USA gear. And so I was the good guy, and every week I would wrestle probably one of the biggest, literally and figuratively, contradictions that I ever met. He wrestled by the name of the Road Captain. His name was Don. He weighed 408 pounds. He was in a bike club in Detroit. He worked on bikes all day. He was a born-again Christian and a black belt in karate. He had a big beard and the beadiest little eyes I'd ever seen in my life. And Don just did not shower enough. And I would say, Don, my God, I'll get you the soap. Come on. Because when you're a wrestler, one of the things is your head is stuck between some guy's thighs and you have to kip out of it. And, I'm going to have a hard time sleeping tonight just with the PTSD from reliving this story. But so after a while, it's just one of those things I wanted to try and have a lot of fun with, and made for some good stories and some fun times. But I didn't want to pursue it further than that. It's a rough life. Those guys are on the road all the time. I had other goals, but it was a funny story.
Well, it certainly is, and you've had such a full life athletically, but you also had this full life in the IT world. I mean, and because you've been at it as long as you have, this transformation, if you will, from where the internet was when we graduated college, right, in the early 80s to where it is today. So let's talk about that a little bit. And I want to talk about specifically AI, because it's something that you've got an expertise in and you've been working with and playing with and doing some different projects. And I think our listeners could gain some knowledge. Most of them are self-employed people, most of network marketing, some are in other things, some are part-time networkers and have other business ventures that they own and such. So let's talk about AI, because to me, and I think you said this, and I've quoted you, and I hope it was you I was quoting, because that's what I tell people. I said I'm quoting you, but it might be somebody else that said, the internet for us is kind of what we used, what our kids grew up on. But AI is what our grandkids and great-grandkids will use at a level where everything that we were familiar with will be, oh my God, those were the old days.
Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't me, by the way, but I heard you say it, and I re-quoted it to other people and said, oh yeah, my buddy John says this.
I can swear you said it. Well, let's put it this way. Somebody really, really smart and also Scandinavian said it. So it had to be one of them.
Right in his coattails, which is fine.
Exactly.
So, real quick. So I started, my first computer class was with a thing called Card Punch. And if anybody knows what that card punches are, they're aging themselves. But you had one line of code per card. You had to take all your cards up to a mainframe and they ran them through the system and all that. And that was my second year in college. By the time I graduated college, they had the Mac PC. So they went through a pretty fast rate of change. And matter of fact, I remember thinking, man, this is changing so fast. It's never going to change as fast as this anymore. Man, was I wrong, right? And we talked about this the other day, there's, in my view, two types of older people: happy older people and crabby older people. And that's a gross oversimplification, but what's the commonality in both those groups? In my opinion, it's change. People that resist change, it's coming whether you want to or not. People who are angry, who are overwhelmed, they're resisting change. People who are happy, they're embracing change. And so I think I give you credit for this quote, but I'm pretty sure it is yours. When we were eating dinner the other day, you said, it's about staying interested and being interested. And I think that's such a key thing, whether that's athletics, exercising, or technology, and especially technology, because change is coming so fast. If we don't stay interested in being interested, we'll get run over. And it's okay. You don't have to try to stay on top of everything, but there are some things that come through in our lifetime or once a generation, let's say, that are just game changers, right? Obviously, the internet was a game changer. Smartphones were a game changer, but not to the degree that I think AI is going to be a game changer. So I just did a presentation the other day talking about the disruptive impact AI will have on our lives. And I think what happens is people read the stories and hear the really fantastic over-the-edge things, and they almost get scared because that stuff seems so far out there. But there's a lot of really high, significant impact that it can have on our lives right now that isn't like the sci-fi. Right? So the presentation I did, I broke it down to 3 levels of AI. Level 1 is just becoming more efficient and effective ourselves in what we do. 2 was in our organizations or groups, how can we leverage it for processes to make that, our organization more effective? And then in business, how can we use it to enhance our products and services that we deliver to the market? And I did this to the board. I'm on the board of the group I work for now, iDoc LLC. We support eye doctors. But I was presenting this to the board. I was saying, forget about 2 and 3. Those will overwhelm you. Forget about 2 and 3. Now, let's focus on level 1. How can we use this to become more efficient ourselves? MIT did a recent study Now it was an MIT study, so, they love this kind of stuff, you think, right? But they said on average, people who are using Chat GPT or Bard or, just AI in general, on average, they become 37% more efficient. Well, I took a photo of a developer and I expanded the height or the width by 37%, and it went off to my slide. I was doing a presentation, or I tried to make a point. An extra 37% efficiency, that is huge. And depending on your industry and how you use it, it can even be more than that. And so the CEO had asked me, he goes, well, Scott, how much is it affecting you? And so I said, Dave, I want you to refer to me from now on out as Scott 1.6. Because and that might be a little bit much, but between 40 and 50%, absolutely. And so the way I describe it for become more efficient ourselves, it's like having an intern. If you had an intern to help you with the things that you do on a daily basis, you're not going to take that work and accept it as 100% accurate right out of the gate, right? If your intern said, John, here's a letter I wrote, send it to all your customers. You'd be crazy if you did that. You would proofread it, you would make some edits and all that kind of stuff, but that intern just did a lot of legwork for you. Or better yet, you could go to that intern and say, hey, research this topic for me and bring back some ideas. Or you could go to that intern and say, I just scratched out a speech that I want to give, clean it up for me. So those kind of things, and in writing, right, we have idea creation, we have what I call and we do the brain dump there, we have the messy middle, and then we have the fine tuning at the very end. Typically, if you're like me, I'm great at doing one or two of those things, but somewhere I hit the wall trying to do all three in something I'm writing. And so that's where I can lean on I call it my AI co-pilot or my intern. I can lean on my intern to do that part for me. And I'm just getting so much more done now because and I heard this quote the other day. I saw this written somewhere. It said, the successful professionals of tomorrow, and tomorrow isn't 10 years from now. Tomorrow is next month, 2024. The successful professionals tomorrow will be generalists who have learned how to delegate to AI in those areas. So really, it's in the last 2 months, my productivity has gone off the charts, even where people now at work are laughing about it. But it's because, and this is what happens as we get older, right? We've been in the industry for a long time. We recognize what we should get all excited about and what also seems like just a passing fad or a trend. Now, the one thing I will say about AI, it is still a little bit of the wild, wild west. So, buyer beware, take everything you get from AI as a grain of salt. It's based on model. I heard this quote as well. It's really, really knowledgeable, but it's not necessarily smart. It has access to a lot of data, but a lot of data out there isn't really the right answer for you either. So I always look at it like it can do a lot of your legwork, but don't take the answer verbatim that it gives you. You always need to exercise your domain experience or have somewhere, somebody else you can bounce stuff off of. So, but I think we're at a very unique time in history in terms of how productive we could be.
You used it to do something, and just refresh my memory and fellow listeners. You had used it with 3 different scenarios within your track and field experience. And I don't recall exactly what they were. I read it, but I'm not recalling it. But share that. I used 3 completely different scenarios within one.
Right. So what's funny is, and I this was the post maybe you're thinking about. I said, I think I just had my first argument with AI. I don't know if I should be amused or concerned because I put in, okay, here's my workout program. And again, I do really short workouts, right? So I have, I might do a 5-minute chest workout or a 2-minute leg workout, or, I might just go run some sprints and call that a workout. So I gave him my list of workouts and I said, create a 28-day workout program for me where I'm not going to do the same body part more than once a day, that I want 4 complete rest days throughout this time period. And then I had some other things in there. And it came back and it said, here's your 28-day workout with 4 rest days. But it had 6 rest days. It told me it had 4. So I guess, well, there's 6. Can you make it with 4? Well, then it put 5 and told me it had 4. And they said, well, make this one as a rest day. So it did it. And then it said, now I add 16 sprint workouts. It added 14, but it gave me 16. And so I was going back and forth with it and finally said, okay, but you should take more rest. And I thought, wow, isn't that fascinating in the sense that it came back, and somewhere, and this is where, we have to take everything with a grain of salt and review it. It had its rule set about how often it thought I should work out. And even though I was asking it to give me more, it was holding back. And only when I pinpointed it really specifically, and the final thing that I said was, put a sprint workout on this day. That's when it came back and told me I needed more rest. It was still a really useful exercise. I mean, it would take me a long time to lay out the workout that it gave me. Even I was arguing with it. I felt like I was talking to one of my teenage boys of, 10 years ago or something. But, so it still was very useful, but it was also a thing, saying, hey, make sure you don't just accept everything verbatim. But I've used it for diet plans. I used it this morning of saying, because we have competition next week, the Nationals. And I was curious. I said, what if I'm an older athlete? What's a good warm-up plan, for competition? And normally I always figure you should get up at least 3 hours before, and here's the things you do. It actually had a different plan than I've been doing. And so, I'm going to go do a little more research on it, but I thought that was really interesting. Another thing that was fascinating, John, and this highlights one of the limitations or / opportunities. Urolithin A is a supplement based on pomegranates, right? And there's some recent studies out. My son's a fitness writer, and he just did an article on it for Dave. Is it Ben Greenfield? I think it's Ben. Yeah. So he does some ghost writing for Ben Greenfield, and he was telling me about it. And so I looked it up on ChatGPT, and it said, I said, tell me about this for older male athletes. And it said, well, we don't have enough data for this. Our data model only goes through September 2021, which is already almost 2 years ago. So I got an extension that allows it to also go out now and search the internet. So when I turned that extension on, I said, now, give me some information on this for older male athletes. It went out and retrieved 5 different articles and took some of the older information and then took, stuff from these articles and then gave me some responses based on, here's what we're finding for urolithin A for older male athletes. And it even cited the references of where it came from. So yeah, those articles could be garbage for all we know. But what a great way to do some research and then have the citations there. So now, and it also gave me, here's what we took out of this article, like an overview, and then it condensed stuff for me. So, again, a huge time saver and very interesting as well.
So 2 questions, Scott. Okay. So somebody who's self-employed, most of our listeners are self-employed or at least part-time self-employed. How can they utilize it today? If they're not, you're an electrical engineer. If they're a network marketing distributor, let's say, and they're selling XYZ, be it a supplement, be it a skincare, be it a service, whatever, how can they utilize it? How do you see them utilizing it to help them?
Well, so here's a couple of examples. Let's say I want to write a social media post, right? I could say, describe this product as if you're a marketing consultant speaking to high school kids, or describe this, as a marketing consultant to, stay-at-home moms or entrepreneurs. Or I could even say that I've done this for some stuff where you mentioned before, I do teach foundational skills to technical people. And so I'm putting together a manual for that. And for each topic, let's say I take goal setting. I went in there and said, in the voice of a best-selling suspense spy novelist, describe how this a fictitious character used goal setting to save his business and rescue the free world from certain catastrophe. And it went through and it created a very entertaining, nonsensical, but humorous story. And so the key is you can put things in a different voice, right? You could say the CEO earlier today sent me a speech that he's going to give. And he said, I went to ChatGPT and asked for this speech. I replied back and go, man, it makes me want to storm the castle walls. Did you say write this in the voice of Vince Lombardi? He's old enough to know who Vince Lombardi was. But the point is, you can use it for that kind of tone. You can also say things like, and make sure you use SEO-friendly keywords. Another option where I use it a lot of times is as I'm writing stuff, I'll get stuck on a word, right? I had a presentation I was doing, and I was trying to describe different methods for using something or benefits, and all I could come up with was high-level ways. What the heck does high-level ways mean? That sounds like somebody doesn't even know. It sounds like I don't even know English. So I said, here's what I'm using. Can you give me some other words to use? And it gave me 10 different phrases, and one of them was fantastic. So in the case where you have writer's block, which I had even on finding the right word, it was a great tool. But I think for people who are in sales, responding to emails, coming up with social media content, coming up with a cover letter, coming up with a pitch for a product. You have the whole thing of, your 30-second pitch. You want to talk about what's the over benefit? What's the dynamic difference? What's the reason to believe? That stuff sounds great, but sometimes when you actually have to put the words in order and the pen to paper, it can be challenging, right? So this is where the AI can help you, and again, you can use it for the different levels. One of the things that I've noticed throughout my career, and I'm sure you have as well, it's a lot easier for a lot of people to critique than it is to create. Sometimes you have to blank whiteboard, and it's just tough to get going. But if somebody gives you something, you can say, okay, I don't really like that, or this could be here. So whatever your personality or mood is, you can say, as I often do, create something for me, and then I tweak it. Or if I'm really inspired, I could just, excuse my French, I can just puke it out on paper and say, make sense of what I just, spilled on paper, and it'll do that. So I think for the direct salespeople, you can also, I did this the other day for a lady who wants to start a marketing business. And I went through and said, okay, her idea is to help people with presentations. And so I said, okay, what other opportunities exist for a startup company that wants to help people with presentations? What other things of value could they deliver to their customer? And it talked about, pre-marketing, right? Somebody's going to do a presentation. Well, use that event to market your business beforehand. Follow up and retention. Coaching in terms of how to do the right presentations, recording and media, the whole live, the social media, beforehand, the live event, and then the post. It came up with like 10 different items that she could now offer as part of that, with the nucleus being that she's going to help people come up with presentation content and material. But here's all the other services she could offer around that. Really fascinating.
And here's my final question, Scott, and then we'll come back and then let you wrap up on a couple ideas here. So you are a super busy guy. You're still a world-class athlete in your 60s. You're normally tops in the shot put and discus at any event that you go to, even at the world level. You are very, very busy in the IT world. You're part of all the cutting edge things that are happening in this world. Plus your husband, father, et cetera, et cetera. How do you plan your day where you get it all done? Because you're a busy guy. You're one of the busiest people that I know. How do you do it all?
Well, it's funny. My daughter's just like me, by the way, my middle daughter. She, like I said, software developer, plays professional ultimate frisbee, does modeling, 6 feet tall, just a great kid and nice. And every once in a while when she was younger, she would get totally overwhelmed. And I told her, I said, Jamie, you have to understand, you like to overcommit. You like to do things and keep busy. So when you get overwhelmed, right, you just have to understand, you put yourself in that position. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You just have to learn ways to get out of it. So obviously lists, right? This stuff's been around for a long time. Make the list, check things off. You'll feel better about things. Immediately check the first thing off. You feel a lot better about it. I think as you get older, you kind of realize, okay, I'm going to give myself the list. And I do this mentally, and with the developers that I manage, we start each day with what we call a daily lineup. We plan our day of, here's the things I'm going to work on today. And I'm always going to have one or two of those things that I'm not going to probably get to that day. They carry over to the next day. I don't worry about it. Right. And so when I was younger, I might get more uptight about it. I have to get all these things done. No, you don't have to get anything done. Right. You want to do your best throughout the day. One of the things that's really become apparent to me, while it's been apparent for 30 some years, is, man, we spend so much time working. We're idiots if we don't find a way to have fun while we're doing it. Right. It should absolutely be a lot of fun. And I've heard from people before, sometimes, especially when I was younger, that, Scott, you laugh too much at work. And I say, hey, I'm getting a lot of stuff done. If I should have fun with it. And then I went to a leadership thing, and you have people who you work with rate you. And it was one of the top properties that are characteristics that people thought I had, is that I made working fun. Well, I wasn't doing that for everybody else, to be honest with you. Selfishly, I just want to make sure I have fun. Right. But I think a big part of having fun and working and doing a lot is admitting you're choosing to do that. Mm-hmm. And so the other thing is, and this stuff, it sounds kind of cliche. And so if it sounds a little corny or whatever, my apologies up front, but man, gratitude, and like I said before, getting up and feeling better lucky than good. I try to have the habit, as soon as my feet touch the floor in the morning, I say thank you out loud 3 times. I have a motto that when I wake up, I get up. Because the worst thing for me is laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to fall back asleep. I can get up, be productive for an hour. I might then get tired and sleep for 4 more hours, right? And so I had tried to have that, those mottos. But I think that the gratitude piece, people will tell me, well, you get a lot done. I go, yeah, how lucky am I for that? They go, well, you're a really hard worker. It's not luck. I said, well, how lucky am I that I'm a really hard worker? They go, well, you make yourself do it. You have all this energy. I go, how lucky am I to have this energy to make myself do it? Right? So no matter what, we can always spin it to that point of, man, I'm just lucky to be in that mindset, that frame of mind, to want to do more, to be enthusiastic about life. Curiosity, when I was going through all the treatments and all that kind of stuff. And, as you can imagine with bladder cancer, they call a lot of the procedures non-invasive. Well, no, to any guy, it's pretty darn invasive. The way they give you things that they give you, I've become intimate with more strangers than I ever thought I would be in my whole lifetime in just the last couple of years. But I think, having curiosity about, it's so fascinating what the human body can do. It's so fascinating how we treat it, how it can heal itself, and this from your background, the right supplements, the right vitamins and minerals and things that we eat and consume. One of the things that, and not that I don't want to end on this note, but one of the things that really does kind of suck is that adage about you can't out exercise a bad diet. Man, that is true, and even more true as we get older.
It's so funny you said that. On my other computer here, Scott, I've got a little sticky note. You can never train a bad diet.
Yeah. Well, and along those lines too, it gets back to the overcommitting and embracing that we choose that. I've often thought it's tough to go through life in a state of sacrifice. It's tough to go through life in a state of denying yourself things. So again, I'm lucky. I got to the point where I convinced myself that I love salad. I don't like dressing. I love salad. I love fruits. I love seafood. I like the things that I'm going to eat. I don't go to the grocery store and deny myself and, say I'm not going to have that donut where I feel like I'm sacrificing. I go there and I think, man, I love this salad, right? And so I think with exercise as well, I love to exercise. I love the way I feel. We've all had this before. It's so tough sometimes to go and exercise. And then when you're done, you're thinking, man, why was that so tough? Because I feel so great now, right? So I think being able to spin it a little bit, and that was one of the things I talked about to the doctors and patients as well, is that we got to get off this thing of feeling like we have to sacrifice to be healthy and fit. We got to lighten up and have some fun. I always coach people to pat yourself on the back for the process. Don't sit there and don't start a fitness program saying, I'm going to get to this goal. Start the fitness program saying, I'm going to exercise this many times a week. And if you miss one, big deal. Start up the next time, but really applaud yourself, pat yourself on the back for the process. You'll get the result through that.
So what's next, Scott? I know you've got some track things coming up. You've got some business things coming up. What's next on the Scott Eriksson agenda?
Well, so the big thing, we got nationals next week, and then a little bit nervous because I just for my 62nd birthday, my wife, again the Latin performance dancer, gave me a birthday present of her and I taking tango bachata lessons. I call it tang chowder. I don't even know what the hell we're doing. Excuse my French. But
Never heard of it.
First one. And then, I know right now I have 7 left feet. I think maybe with some time and effort, I might get down to 4, but that may be the limit for me. So, but other than that, the AI stuff is really, really exciting. And then I hope to, sometime this summer, I'm going to wrap up the microburst workout program. And we'll make that available online. Right now, if people go to microburstworkout.com, I have 15 videos up there, things you can do with a resistance band. I think the password is Life is the Gym, and it's, proper case. And then also the NERDbody, we're getting ready to do another revision of that. And so real quick, NERDbody is where we send text messages throughout the day with little reminders of, hey, time to get up and do your 1 to 2 minute exercise. And there's a little motivational quote. Then there's a 30-second video. And I like to tell people before they sign up, we even have Swedish fitness models in the video. After they sign up, sorry, I'm Swedish. So, but it is real fun.
And we should really shock them. I'm half, so maybe I'll have to come and be one too. I don't know.
In all seriousness, I'll feature people in videos. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that. Now, I always tell my wife that I want to make couples NERDbody videos. And let's go, NERDbody after hours with the really NERDbody after hours. But you and I can't do those together, John. Sorry.
No, I don't think that would work. Well, Scott, this has been a privilege and a lot of fun. So I'll give you the last word. Anything else you want to share with our listeners tonight?
Again, it's just corny and stuff, but man, I just feel so lucky to be where I am in life, the people who I'm surrounded with, friends like you. And, as we get older, I think it becomes more important to us to, want to try to have an impact and help other people. And so thank you for this, to whoever's listening. If somebody wants to exercise, you go to NERDbody and, sign up for the 2-week trial. It never ends. So it's a passion. It's not a money-making venture, but we love to have people sign up and get the videos and do the exercises. And it's just an opportunity to help people. And so that feels really good at this age.
Well, Scott, once again, thank you so much for your insights on AI, athleticism, and also, on getting older, because you're doing it gracefully. It's not easy, as we know, but you're doing it gracefully. So continue to success.
And don't just laugh when people go, "Oh, age is just a number." Yeah, it's just a number. It's a number of years I've been alive. What the hell?
Exactly.
So, good stuff. Appreciate it, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Leave Nothing to Chance. If you want to know more about what it takes to succeed in the network marketing space, join us again next week for another amazing episode. For additional resources and to connect with John Solider, visit leavingnothingtochance.com. Don't forget to leave a review, and we'll see you next time.